So now we are back in English, in the English language. This is Talk for Ukraine. We have now the military expert Niko Lange. He is also very well known. You are right now in Ankara, Niko, aren't you?
Yes, I arrived to Ankara and I'm looking forward to many meetings, the industry forum and the NATO summit itself, if I will manage through all the police cordons and all the security checks.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I wanted to just quote once again this famous saying of first NATO General Secretary Lord Hastings Ismay from 1952. NATO was founded and created to keep the Soviet Union, the Russians out, the Americans in, the Germans down. Okay, Germans, I'm a German, and we are both Germans, and we are not down. We are a strong member of the alliance, but what about keeping the Russians out and the Americans in? Does not NATO still fulfill its functions now, or is it in danger?
Yeah, I mean it's a famous quote. It's used very often. It's partly true and partly not true because part of the success of NATO is not keeping the Germans down. The Germans rearming themselves, the Germans becoming economically stronger, and becoming a partner in NATO from 1955. So, but Russians out, Americans in. Yeah, that's, if you want to say so, if that is the classic purpose of NATO, now we have a new situation. We have to keep the Russians out while the Americans don't want to be in anymore. Yeah, we have to keep the Russians out by ourselves, while the Americans are believing the Russians could be their new friends and business partners. And this is something I think that is really beyond the lines of all the declarations that will also be here in Ankara. That is testing the NATO.
Yes, we have discussed also in our previous speech the consciousness to know who is friend, who is foe, and the Russians are foe, and the Americans knew that all the time. But under Donald Trump now, it seems to go away, this consciousness. Trump treats Putin just as a friend, and he said he does not say Ukraine is his friend. So that
I mean, it's an irony of history because a little bit we are now in a situation with Trump, like the Baltic states were with us for a long time, where the Baltic states says, look, Putin is planning aggression, he is planning war against Ukraine, he is up to no good. And then Germany said, he's our business partner and we want to to have an energy partnership and so on. And now we are in the situation that we have understood now as Germans, late, but then in 2022, Putin is the enemy, but now Trump says, well, he could be a business partner, we can make money and so on. But clear is in an alliance where you have to coherently defend yourself and where you have to deter the enemy, if there is no common understanding who the enemy is, it will be very difficult to have this credible defense and deterrence.
That is a very interesting point you just mentioned. This is the so-called business, and we Germans with our Nord Stream pipeline gas deals, and Gerhard Schröder, Putin's best friends, our former chancellor. I heard a naming for this thing is called strategic corruption, which Vladimir Putin is using very skillfully.
It's not new. I mean, open and covert corruption, this kinds of using business ties to influence not only policymaking, but also to influence debates in our countries. That is what Russia has been doing in Germany and probably is still doing. I mean, there are still people taking Russian money in Germany. And China is, I think, trying something similar. So this strategic corruption is a real issue. And in Germany, I think not enough has been. There has been a book about the Moscow connection, but not enough has been published about what happened here in the last decades. But now, clearly, Russia is using this method of strategic corruption against Trump, because the Trump presidency number 2 is a relatively open Trump family and friends enrichment program. It's all about, I mean, if you have seen how much money they made by those kind of meme coins and shady business things, and how from political decisions the president takes, his family members and their businesses are profiting, makes it easy for Russian strategic corruption to play a part. I mean, that's the way the Russians like to operate, and unfortunately, Trump and the Trump family are very open to those kind of offers.
So it is very important to sharpen your mind and again know who is friend, who is foe, and this is fading away in many areas and under Trump in the United States, and we have a lot of watchers, viewers now from the States. And there are also many good people out there who know exactly that something is going terribly wrong. But now we Germans and we Europeans, we have to be the lighthouse. And Ukraine is fighting for all that democracy, freedom. And so why can't we integrate Ukraine in a functioning security structure in Europe? And not only integrate, give them.
I think that this discussion is a very important discussion. It is evolving at the moment. I mean, Ukraine itself made clear it's not only receiving security assistance. Ukraine is providing security. Ukraine is keeping the Russians away from us successfully. Ukraine is very good when it comes to drones and drone defense, far advanced. And more European NATO members understand if we have to provide defense and deterrence in Europe now by ourselves as Europeans, then we need the Ukrainians. Then they are part of the solution. Because they have a strong armed forces, they are battle proven, they have strong industry and technology in the defense sector. So I fully agree. We need to find solutions together with Ukraine, but also if you look at it from a armed forces and possibilities of armed forces point of view, but also from a technology and industry point of view, you could also say we need Ukraine and Turkey to become part of the solution for defense and deterrence that is less relying on the Americans. But then is for the NATO summit in Ankara here. It's a little bit of a passive-aggressive message when you say, "Oh, Daddy Trump, we want you to be our protector," and at the same time you understand, yes, we have to do it ourselves. And the crystallization point is, I think here, when Trump says, "Look, you have to do it all yourself, defense and deterrence in Europe, and we will not do it anymore." But in order to do it, you have to buy American weapons and American technology. I think that's where the Europeans should say, yes, we are ready to do more, but we will do this by investing into our own technologies, into our own industries. It's not working the way Trump imagines this.
Just as the Ukrainians have done, they have developed their own stuff because they knew that we, the Germans, famous Taurus missile, we still have not delivered Taurus. I cannot understand it, by the way. But the Ukrainians develop anything on their own, and they are successful with it, and they are also not hindered. We have been forbidding them to defend themselves on Russian territory. So what is the outcome in Ankara, you think? Because you just mentioned Daddy Trump, and Trump will be there.
There are a couple of dimensions. I mean, we are in a phase. I think one of the results of the Ankara summit will be not to have a summit every year anymore. It seems to me NATO leaders are tired of having a NATO summit every year. So the next one, I think, will be 2 years from now.
Wow.
That will be one decision. And you see it in the substance of the draft of the resolution. Yeah, I mean, you every year to meet to reconfirm the same things, to write the same words down without conceptually developing things further. You can very well argue there is no real reason for that. There are several dimensions of the summit. It's not a summit with one big message. I think there are several dimensions. One dimension is the focus on technology and industry. Now that we are in the implementation phase of security, I mean, The Hague was about the money, and Ankara is very much about how to spend it, how to build a technological and industrial base. That's why it starts with an industry forum where defense industry leaders are meeting on the day before the summit. So that's one element. The second element, I think, is Turkey as a strategic partner, the role of Turkey in NATO, the summit happening in Ankara. Turkey also wants to be part from an industry point of view in European security and defense. So that will be a second element of discussion. And then we should not underestimate also the Pacific Four will be here. Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Australia. And there is, I think, a very important strategic dimension because the dimension would say the Europeans are doing more for security and defense in Europe so that the Americans can use more capabilities for the Indo-Pacific, where they, together with the P4, have to stay strong against China. So it's not only that the Europeans have to do more to take more responsibility for their own security. I think it's also to help partners in the Indo-Pacific. And maybe one last point of what will be important in Ankara. I think the question of how to find ways of cooperating with Ukraine as NATO, how to strengthen the eastern flank by using Ukrainian strength, Ukrainian capabilities. And I'm sure that President Zelensky will also have something to offer. He will not only come here to ask for things, he will also have something to offer. But this all is happening while Russia is firing missiles at Kiev. And so the immediate question of air and missile defense will certainly also play a role.
This is very great points you just mentioned, especially the Indo-Pacific one. Brings me also to a democratic worldwide alliance, which should be strengthened. And but what I always see and cannot believe that we have already 5 years of a hot war in Europe, and Ukraine is fighting all alone. We are talking about military alliance, and is this big elephant in the room that we would send troops to Ukraine to help them to defend themselves there against Russians? Is this a big taboo, a big no-no? Nobody ever talks about it, or is this a question?
What do you mean? What is a taboo?
I just meant sending troops to help support Ukrainians in Ukraine.
I mean, in this discussion, I mean, there was the so-called coalition of the willing, but nobody knows what they are willing anymore.
The unwilling.
But I think the debate in the context of security guarantees is still very relevant. And unfortunately, we are less forward-leaning than we were a couple of months ago. So last year there was a strong discussion about a European military presence in Ukraine to help securing a ceasefire. Now the British have said, oh, the maximum we have is 1,000 troops. Germany is saying, oh, we can do this from outside of Ukraine. It's not helpful for pressure on Putin and for finding a solution if this is now undecisive. But I do not. This is something that has to, I think, be discussed maybe on the sidelines, but it has to be discussed in different formats after the NATO summit. It is not something that can be discussed in this big group here because not everybody will be part of that.
Yeah, but I mean, fighting war without fighting is still not is really not possible. We Germans are very good in it and saying we need a diplomatic solution. In
Yeah, I mean,
2000,
if you saw the last interview of the Minister of Defense, I mean, we Germans try to shape the reality by strong words and by decisive sound. Yeah, and Putin is firing missiles. That's his answer. The question
right,
is, I think you are right. The question to us is, are we ready and willing to do something and not just talk strongly?
right. Okay, so I guess this let's wrap it up like that. And everybody who has seen it here, please subscribe to this channel, and you can see the first part of our interview in our German channel, Talk for Ukraine Deutsch, and also subscribe to that one, please. I wish you all the best, Nico, for the NATO Summit in Ankara, and it was great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. So, dann habe ich ja noch 5 Minuten Zeit, mir einen Kaffee zu machen. Das ist doch gut.
Genau, ich wollte auch das nicht mehr überstrapazieren. Okay.
Ja, ich glaube, das war jetzt ganz gut.
Ich fand das
Ich
super.
hatte fast den Eindruck, das Englische ging irgendwie sogar ein bisschen flüssiger noch als Deutsche. Da waren wir wahrscheinlich so drin, ne?
Fandest du? Okay. Ich war,
Ja, weiß ich, aber
ich habe das noch nie gemacht bis jetzt. Du bist der allererste. Und übrigens im Moment gerade die 10.000er Marke, habe ich schon erwähnt. Hoffentlich wird der Kanal jetzt ein bisschen nach vorne gehen. Okay, dann ich hol mir jetzt auch einen Kaffee und werde das dann möglichst heute noch veröffentlichen.
Alles klar.
Danke dir. Tschüss.
Bis dann, ne?
Alles Gute.
Ciao, ciao.